A young billionaire rescues an unconscious little girl, clinging to twin babies in a winter square. But when she wakes up in his mansion, a shocking secret changes everything. Jack Morrison was watching the snow fall through the large windows of his penthouse office at Morrison Tower. The digital clock on his desk read 11:47 p. But the young billionaire had no intention of going home. At 32, he was used to lonely work nights, a routine that helped him triple the fortune left by his parents in just 5 years. His blue eyes reflected the city lights as he massaged his temples, trying to ward off fatigue. The last financial report was still open on his laptop, but the words were starting to blur before his eyes. He needed some fresh air. He grabbed his Italian cashmere coat and headed down to the garage, where his Aston Martin was waiting. The night was exceptionally cold, even by December standards in New York. The car's thermometer read 23 degrees, 5 degrees C, and the forecast said temperatures would drop even further throughout the early hours. Jack drove aimlessly for a few minutes, letting the soft purr of the engine soothe him. His thoughts wandered between numbers, charts, and the loneliness he'd been feeling lately. Sarah, his housekeeper for over a decade, kept insisting he needed to open up to love, as she put it. But after the disaster of his last relationship with Victoria, a socialite who was only interested in his fortune, Jack had decided to devote himself exclusively to business. Without realizing it, he ended up near Central Park. The place was completely deserted at that hour, except for a few maintenance workers laboring under the yellowish glow of the streetlights. The snow kept falling in thick flakes, creating an almost unreal landscape. "Maybe a walk will help," he muttered to himself, parking the car. The icy air hit his face like tiny needles when he got out. His Italian shoes sank into the soft snow as he walked the park paths, leaving footprints quickly filled by more snow. The silence was almost absolute, broken only by the occasional crunch of his steps. That's when he heard it. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but there was something else. A weak, almost imperceptible sound that made all his instincts go on alert. Crying. Jack stopped, trying to figure out where it was coming from. It came again, slightly clearer this time, from the playground area. His heart raced as he cautiously approached. The playground was completely covered in snow, the swings and slides looking like ghostly structures under the diffused glow of the streetlights. The crying grew more audible. It came from behind a group of snow-covered bushes. Jack rounded the vegetation and his heart nearly stopped. There, partially covered by the ongoing snowfall, lay a girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old, wearing only a thin coat, totally unsuited for that weather. But what shocked him most was realizing she was clutching 2 small bundles against her chest. Babies. "My God!" he exclaimed, immediately kneeling in the snow. The girl was unconscious, her lips a frightening bluish color. With trembling fingers, he checked her pulse. It was weak, but present. The babies began to cry louder when they felt movement. Wasting no time, Jack took off his own coat and wrapped the 3 children in it. He pulled out his phone, his hands trembling so much he nearly dropped it. "Dr. Peterson, I know it's late, but it's an emergency." His voice came out tense, controlled. "I need you to come to my mansion immediately. No, it's not for me. I found 3 children in the park. 1 is unconscious. Yes, right now." Then he called Sarah. Even after so many years, he was still amazed by her ability to answer on the first ring, no matter the hour. "Sarah, I need you to prepare 3 warm rooms immediately. And set aside clean clothes. No, they're not for visitors. I'm bringing 3 children. A girl about 6 and 2 babies. Yes, you heard correctly. I'll explain when I arrive. And Sarah, also call that nurse who took care of me when I broke my arm, Mrs. Henderson." Very carefully, Jack lifted the small group into his arms. The girl was alarmingly light, and the babies, who seemed to be twins, couldn't have been more than 6 months old. He managed to get back to his car, grateful he'd chosen a model with a spacious back seat. He turned the heater on full blast and drove as fast as conditions allowed to his mansion on the outskirts of the city. Every few seconds, he glanced in the rearview mirror to check on the children. The babies had calmed down a bit, but the girl remained motionless. His mind churned with questions. How did those children end up there? Where were their parents? Why was a girl so young alone with 2 babies on a night like that? Something was very wrong with this story. The Morrison mansion was an imposing Georgian-style structure with 3 floors and over 20,000 square feet. When Jack passed through the wrought iron gates, he saw that many lights were already on. Sarah waited at the main door, her grey hair in its customary bun, wearing a robe over her nightgown. "Good heavens!" she exclaimed upon seeing Jack carrying the children. "What happened?" "Found them in Central Park," he replied quickly as he entered. "Are the rooms ready?" "Yes, I prepared the pink suite and the 2 adjacent rooms on the 2nd floor. Mrs. Henderson is on her way." Jack climbed the marble stairs with Sarah close behind. The pink suite, so named for its soft pink and cream decor, was one of the most comfortable rooms in the mansion. He laid the girl on the large canopy bed, while Sarah took the babies. "I'll give these little ones a warm bath," the housekeeper said, her years of experience with children evident in her confident movements. "Is the doctor arriving soon?" "Yes, he should be." The doorbell cut him off. That must be him now. Dr. Peterson was a man in his 60s, the Morrison family doctor since Jack was a child. Despite the late hour and the urgent call, he was impeccably dressed in his grey suit. "Where are the patients?" he asked, already opening his bag. Jack led him to the pink suite, where the girl was still unconscious. The doctor examined her thoroughly, checking her vital signs and temperature. "Mild hypothermia," he diagnosed. "She was lucky. Another few hours in that cold—" He didn't finish the sentence, but Jack understood the implication. Mrs. Henderson arrived soon after, a stout, middle-aged nurse with a gentle smile. Together with Sarah, she tended to the twins, who, surprisingly, were in better shape than the older girl. "It's extraordinary," Dr. Peterson remarked after examining the babies as well. "They're only slightly chilled. The girl must have used her own body to protect them from the cold, a remarkable act of courage for someone so young." Jack felt a knot in his throat. What had driven a child to such desperate and brave behavior? The following hours passed slowly. Mrs. Henderson stayed with the twins in the adjacent room, where Sarah had improvised 2 cribs. Jack refused to leave the girl's side, watching her pale face as she slept. There was something about her that stirred his protective instincts in a way he'd never felt before. Around 3 in the morning, she began to stir. At first, just slight movements, her eyelids trembling. Then, suddenly, her eyes opened, deep green, now wide with fear. She tried to sit up abruptly, but Jack gently stopped her. "Easy, little one," he said softly. "You're safe now." "The babies," she cried, her voice hoarse with panic. "Where are Emma and Ethan?" Jack was surprised to hear their names. "They're fine," he quickly assured her. "They're sleeping in the next room. My housekeeper and a nurse are taking care of them." The girl seemed to relax a bit upon hearing this, but her eyes remained fearful as she looked around the luxurious room. The soft pink walls, the elegant furniture, and the silk curtains seemed to confuse her even more. Where am I?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "You're in my house," Jack replied kindly. "My name is Jack Morrison. I found you and the babies in the park. You passed out in the snow." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Can you tell me your name?" She hesitated, biting her lower lip. Her eyes darted toward the door, as if evaluating a possible escape. "It's okay," Jack assured her. "No one here will hurt you. We just want to help." "Lily," she finally whispered, so softly Jack barely heard. "That's a very pretty name, Lily," he smiled, trying to sound reassuring. "How old are you?" "6, she replied, still hesitant. "And the babies, Emma and Ethan, right? Are they your siblings?" Mentioning the babies seemed to rekindle Lily's panic. "I need to see them," she exclaimed, again trying to get up. "Calm down, they're fine." Jack gently held her shoulders. "But you have to tell me what happened, Lily. Where are your parents?" The girl's face contorted in pure terror, making Jack's blood run cold. "I can't go back," she exclaimed, grabbing his arm with surprising strength. "He'll hurt them again. The bad father, please don't let him get the babies." Sarah, who had just entered the room carrying a tray of hot chocolate, exchanged worried looks with Jack, "No one will hurt you here, Lily," Jack promised, holding her trembling hand. "You're safe now, you all are." Lily began to cry silently, large tears rolling down her pale cheeks. Sarah placed the tray on the bedside table and approached with a handkerchief. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "you must be hungry. How about some hot chocolate? Then you can see the babies, I promise." The mention of food seemed to awaken something in Lily. Her stomach growled audibly and she blushed. It's been a while since I ate," she admitted timidly. Jack felt a wave of anger. How long had this child gone without proper food? "Sarah, could you also bring something light for her to eat? Maybe some soup?" "Of course, I'll be right back," the housekeeper replied, casting a motherly glance at Lily before leaving. As Lily sipped the hot chocolate in small, easy, careful gulps, Jack watched her closely. Now that she was awake, he noticed unsettling signs he'd missed before. There were small yellowish bruises on her arms, visible under the borrowed pajamas. Her cheeks were sunken for a child her age, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Sarah returned with a tray containing vegetable soup and fresh bread. The delicious smell made Lily shift excitedly in bed, but she waited politely for the housekeeper to arrange everything. "Eat slowly," Sarah gently instructed. "Your stomach needs to get used to food again." While the girl ate, Jack and Sarah exchanged significant looks. There was much more to this story than they could imagine, and Lily's words about the bad father echoed disturbingly in Jack's mind. After finishing the soup, Lily began to show signs of exhaustion, but she still insisted on seeing the babies. "Just a quick peek," Jack conceded. "Then you need to rest." He helped her get up, once again surprised by how light she was, and guided her to the room next door. Mrs. Henderson was dozing in a chair, while the twins slept peacefully in their makeshift cribs. Lily tiptoed in, checking each baby with a care that broke Jack's heart. Satisfied that they were safe and warm, she finally allowed herself to be taken back to her bed. "Sleep now," Jack said softly, adjusting the blankets around her. "We'll talk more tomorrow." Lily held his hand when he made to step away. "Promise you won't let him find us?" she asked, her green eyes pleading. "I promise," Jack replied firmly, though he wasn't entirely sure who he was making the promise against. "You're under my protection now." The girl seemed to accept that, her eyes finally closing as exhaustion overtook her. Within minutes, her breathing became steady and deep. Jack stayed by the bed for a few more moments, watching her restless sleep. Sarah approached quietly, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You need to rest too," she whispered. "I can't stop thinking about what these children have been through, Sarah," he answered, his voice heavy with concern. "Who could make a child run away on a night like this with 2 babies? We'll learn more tomorrow," the housekeeper said wisely. "For now, they're safe." Jack nodded but made no move to leave. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep. His instincts told him that rescuing them from the snow was only the beginning of a much bigger story. As he watched Lily sleep, he made a silent promise. He would do everything in his power to protect those 3 children, no matter the cost. The snow was still falling outside, but inside Morrison Mansion, 3 little lives were beginning to find a new path to hope. Tom Parker was not the kind of detective you found in the yellow pages. His discreet office on the 3rd floor of an old building in Manhattan didn't even have a sign on the door. That was exactly why Jack had chosen him. "I need absolute discretion on this case," Jack explained, watching the detective examine photos of the children that Sarah had taken during breakfast. "The fewer people who know, the better." Tom nodded, his experienced eyes studying every detail of the images. At 55, he had the kind of face that went unnoticed in a crowd, his best professional tool. "Are you sure you don't want to involve the authorities?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Not yet," Jack replied, tense. "I have a feeling we need to understand this story better first. Lily." She panics just mentioning her father. "What about the mother?" "She refuses to talk about it. Actually, she barely speaks. She spends all her time with the twins, like she's afraid they'll disappear at any moment." Tom jotted down some notes in his battered notebook. "I'll need more information. Any detail might be helpful." "The twins are about 6 months old. Emma and Ethan," Jack informed him. "Lily is 6. I found all three in Central Park 3 days ago. She was shielding the babies from the cold with her own body. The detective raised his eyebrows, impressed. A little girl and 2 babies. Someone has to be looking for them. That's exactly what worries me, Jack muttered. Back at the mansion, Jack found Sarah supervising Lily as she played with the twins in the living room. The girl sat on the Persian rug, softly humming to Emma while Ethan slept in his new stroller. Over the past 3 days, Jack had practically cleared out a department store, buying everything the children might need: clothes, toys, diapers, strollers. Morrison Mansion, once so formal and quiet, now looked like a luxury daycare center. "Hi there, little one," he smiled, sitting next to her on the rug. "How are our babies today?" Lily looked up, a small smile appearing on her face. It was the first time Jack had seen her smile since he found her. "Emma likes music," she said softly. "Mommy used to sing to them." Jack exchanged a quick glance with Sarah. It was the first time Lily had voluntarily mentioned her mother. "Did your mom sing to you a lot?" he asked casually, trying not to sound too eager so he wouldn't scare her. Lily's smile vanished. She hugged Emma tighter, her green eyes suddenly filling with tears. She can't sing anymore," she whispered, and 2 large tears rolled down her cheeks. Jack felt his heart tighten. Gently, he placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "It's okay, Lily. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." But something seemed to have broken inside her. Still cradling Emma, Lily began to speak, her voice broken by sobs. She sang every night, even when he shouted for her to stop, said it was too much noise and that the babies had to learn to sleep in silence. Sarah approached quietly, taking Emma from Lily's arms. The girl didn't resist, allowing Jack to hug her as she cried. "He got so mad," she continued through her sobs. "Said she spoiled us too much, that we needed to be strong and that crying was for the weak." Jack felt a wave of cold anger rising in his chest. Who was this man who had traumatized a child so deeply? "Lily," he said gently when her sobs began to subside, "you're the strongest girl I've ever met. You took care of your baby siblings all by yourself, protected them from the cold, and that's not weak." She looked up at him, surprised. "Really?" "Absolutely," he smiled, wiping away her tears. "And now you're not alone anymore. I'm going to take care of you." The words came out naturally, without him planning them, but as soon as he spoke them, Jack knew they were true. Over the past 3 days, these children had stirred feelings in him he hadn't known he possessed. "Promise?" Lily asked, her green eyes fixed on his. "I promise," he answered firmly. That night, after the children were asleep, Jack stayed in his office, lost in thought. Sarah came in with a cup of tea. "Do you really intend to keep them?" she asked, and setting the cup on the table. "At least temporarily," he replied, "until we know more about the situation." "I can't just hand them over to the system without knowing what happened, Sarah. There's something very wrong here." The housekeeper nodded, a slight smile on her lips. "You know, in all these years working for you, I've never seen you so alive." Jack raised his eyebrows, surprised. "What do you mean?" "It used to be just business, meetings, work. Now there's life in this house, children's laughter, a baby's crying, and even you've been smiling more." He couldn't help but smile. It was true. In just 3 days, those 3 little lives had completely transformed his methodical, solitary routine. His phone vibrated, a message from Tom. "I found something. We need to talk first thing tomorrow." Jack reread the message several times, an uneasy feeling growing in his chest. Something told him the revelations ahead would change everything. Upstairs, the soft sounds of sleeping children filled the once empty rooms of Morrison Mansion. Jack climbed up for his final check of the night, a habit he had developed over the past few days. Lily was asleep, hugging the teddy bear he had bought, her face finally serene. Next to her, in their cribs, Emma and Ethan slept peacefully. As he watched them, Jack knew with certainty he would do anything to protect these children. What he didn't know was that his promise would be tested much sooner than he imagined. Tom Parker's office felt even more claustrophobic that grey morning. Jack watched the detective arrange a series of documents on his worn desk, his stomach tightening with anticipation. "What did you find?" he asked, unable to wait any longer. Tom sighed heavily before answering. Robert and Claire Matthews, married 8 years. He's an executive at a pharmaceutical company. She was a music teacher in an elementary school. The detective paused meaningfully. Was in the past, Jack felt a chill. What happened to her? Officially. Car accident 2 months ago. A head-on collision on a deserted road, no witnesses. Tom pushed a police report toward Jack. But there are disturbing inconsistencies in the case. Jack examined the document, his face gradually paling. The body was unrecognizable. Exactly. Tom nodded. Identification was made solely by personal items and dental records provided by the husband. And there's more. Over the last 5 years, there were 17 calls to the police at their address, all for disturbances or domestic disagreements. None resulted in arrest. 17 calls and no one did anything, Jack asked, incredulous. Robert Matthews has powerful connections, Tom explained, passing more documents over. Each incident was quickly shelved. Witnesses always changed their statements. Officers were transferred. Jack ran his hands through his hair, trying to process the information, and the children. Lily is Claire's daughter from a previous marriage. Robert legally adopted her after the wedding. The twins were born 6 months ago. Tom hesitated before continuing. There are records of Lily visiting the ER twice last year, a broken arm and a concussion. The explanations were falling down the stairs and playground accident. Jack felt bile rise in his throat. Lily's words about the bad father now made terrible sense. Jack, Tom said seriously, Robert Matthews is looking for them. He's already hired private investigators, offered a reward. He's using all his resources. He won't get near those children, Jack declared, his voice full of determination. Back at the mansion, Jack was greeted by a scene that made his heart tighten. Lily was curled up in a corner of the living room, trembling, while Sarah tried to calm her. It was just a nightmare, sweetheart, the housekeeper said softly. He was here, Lily sobbed. I saw him taking Emma and Ethan. Jack knelt beside her. It was just a bad dream, little one. Look, the babies are right there, sleeping safely. Lily threw herself into his arms, crying convulsively. Don't let him take them, Jack. Please. He... Shh. It's okay. He hugged her tight. No one will take you away from here. Later, after Lily finally fell back asleep, Jack called a meeting with his security team. Morrison Mansion was already well protected, but he wanted more. I want cameras covering every inch of the perimeter, he instructed. Guards round the clock, strict checks on anyone entering or leaving, and I need a team dedicated solely to the children's safety. Yes, Mr. Morrison, the head of security nodded. We'll start installations right away. In the days that followed, Jack reorganized his entire life around the children. He moved his office to the mansion, delegated meetings, and focused only on essential business matters. Every free moment was dedicated to Lily and the twins. Sarah watched, amazed as her employer transformed. The young workaholic billionaire had turned into a devoted father almost overnight. She often found him in the twins' room late at night, rocking Emma or Ethan, or reading stories to Lily until she fell asleep. One morning, while Sarah was preparing bottles for the twins, she heard laughter coming from the garden. Through the kitchen window, she saw Jack running across the grass with Lily on his shoulders, both of them laughing hysterically. It was the first time she'd heard the girl laugh like that. Hiya, Jack, Lily shouted, arms stretched out like wings. Hold on tight, princess, he responded, carefully spinning around. Sarah discreetly wiped away a tear. The mansion, once so silent and formal, now overflowed with life and love. The twins were thriving too. Emma, the more outgoing one, already smiled at everyone and tried to crawl across the living room rug. Ethan, quieter, melted whenever Jack picked him up to make funny faces. They seem happier, Lily commented one evening, watching the twins play in their playpen. What about you, Lily? Jack asked gently. Are you happy here? She looked up at him with her big green eyes. I've never been so happy, she answered with a surprising sincerity for her age. Here, no one yells, no one hurts. Jack felt his heart break and mend at the same time. He pulled her into a tight embrace, silently vowing that no one would ever hurt this child again. But not all moments were happy. Lily's nightmares continued, growing more intense. One particularly bad night, she woke up screaming so loudly that she startled the twins. "Mummy!" she called out between sobs. "Don't let him do that, Mummy." Jack rushed to her room, finding her drenched in sweat, eyes wide in terror. "Lily, wake up. It's just a dream." He shook her gently. She clung to his arms with surprising strength. "He pushed her, Jack. I saw him push her down the stairs. Mummy didn't fall on her own." Jack felt his blood run cold. "What are you talking about, little one?" But Lily was already sobbing uncontrollably, unable to continue. Jack rocked her until she drifted back to sleep, his mind reeling at the terrible implication of her words. Early the next morning, he called Tom. "I need you to investigate something specific," he said as soon as the detective picked up. "Was there any household accident involving Claire Matthews before the car accident?" "Let me check," Tom replied. There was a pause and the rustling of papers. "Yes, 3 months before the fatal crash, she was hospitalized after a fall down the stairs. Broken ribs, severe concussion." "My God," Jack muttered. "Lily saw everything." "Jack," Tom's voice turned grave, "there's one more thing you need to know. Robert Matthews just hired 2 more private investigators. One of them has a reputation for using unconventional methods." Jack's worry grew exponentially. That same afternoon, he called a meeting with his lawyers. "I want to file for temporary custody," he announced. "And I need protective measures for the children." "Mr. Morrison," one of the lawyers began hesitantly, "you have no legal tie to these children. It will be difficult to justify." "Then find a way," Jack banged the table. "Those kids will not go back to Robert Matthews. Not while I'm alive." While the lawyers discussed strategies, Jack received a message from Sarah. "Lily is asking for you. She drew something she wants to show you." In the children's room, Lily waited, holding a piece of paper. It was a crayon drawing of 5 stick figures, 3 small ones and 2 large ones. "It's us," she explained shyly. "So you, me, Emma, Ethan, and Sarah, a family." Jack felt tears sting his eyes. He picked Lily up and hugged her tight. "Yes, little one," he whispered. "We're a family." Sarah, rocking Emma on the other side of the room, smiled through her own tears. The moment was interrupted by Jack's phone vibrating. It was Tom again. "We need to talk. Urgent." Robert Matthews was seen in New York. Jack looked at Lily, still clinging to him, proudly showing him where she'd drawn the twins. Then at Emma in Sarah's arms, and Ethan peacefully asleep in his crib. A family he would protect at any cost. The storm was approaching, but he was ready to face it. "No one will hurt you," he murmured, more to himself than to the children. Never again. What he didn't know was that Robert Matthews was closer than he imagined, and that the true test of his promise was about to begin. The black and white photo on Jack's computer screen showed a tall, elegant man leaving a luxury hotel in Manhattan. Robert Matthews had the kind of face that inspired trust at first glance, and that was exactly what made him even more dangerous. "It was taken yesterday," Tom said over the phone. "He's staying at the Peninsula, in an executive suite. He's been making lots of calls, meeting people in expensive restaurants. He's moving large sums of money. Were you able to find out where that money's going?" "Not yet, but—" Tom hesitated. "There's something off about his finances. For someone in his position, he's taking very risky steps. It looks desperate." Jack hung up thoughtfully. From his office window, he could see Lily playing in the garden with Sarah and the twins. The girl was more relaxed these days, even starting to smile more. The idea that this peace might be shattered made his stomach turn. The intercom rang. "Mr. Morrison, one of the guards spotted a suspicious car driving around the block for the 3rd time today. Did they photograph the plate?" "Yes, sir. We've already sent it in for checking." Jack immediately activated the protocol he'd set up. Within minutes, Sarah had taken the children inside, and external security was reinforced. Later, during dinner, Lily was unusually quiet. Her green eyes kept darting to the windows, even though the curtains were closed. "Everything all right, little one?" Jack asked gently. "I saw a man today," she whispered, "when I was in the garden, on the other side of the street." Jack felt his heart race. "What did he look like?" I couldn't see clearly, but tears began rolling down her cheeks. He was wearing a dark blue suit, like your father's. Sarah finished gently. Lily nodded, trembling. He always wore suits like that. Said he had to look important, so people would trust him. Jack and Sarah exchanged worried looks. It was the first time Lily had spoken so directly about Robert. Lily continued, her voice almost inaudible. He made Mommy cry a lot, always asking for more money. Said those were the last bad men he would pay. Bad men? Jack asked, trying to keep his voice calm. They used to come to the house sometimes, late at night. Lily wrapped her arms around herself. They talked loud, wanted money. Daddy got different when they came, really scared. The pieces started to come together in Jack's mind. Tom, he muttered to himself. I need to talk to Tom. Later, after putting the children to bed, an endeavor longer than usual, as Lily insisted on repeatedly checking that all the windows were locked, Jack met with the detective in his office. Loan sharks? Tom confirmed, spreading documents over the mahogany desk. And we're not talking about small neighborhood lenders. Robert Matthews is involved with big, dangerous people. How much? From what I've tracked so far, over 15 million. It started with horse racing bets, then roulette, high-stakes poker. When the losses got too big, he started borrowing to cover them, one hole covering another, getting deeper and deeper. And Claire? How does she fit in? From what I found, she was a successful music teacher. She had a considerable inheritance from her family, property, stocks, treasury bonds, about $5 million. Tom pushed more documents toward Jack. In the last 2 years, all of it was transferred to various accounts, some offshore, others under shell companies. The money just vanished. My God, Jack muttered. There's more, Tom went on. I found records of a life insurance policy in her name, high value, sole beneficiary, Robert Matthews. Jack felt a chill. The car accident wasn't enough, Tom finished. The debts were bigger, and now, well, the twins have a considerable trust fund left by their maternal grandparents. It's only accessible when they turn 21, but with legal custody, he wants to use the children's money, Jack concluded, disgusted. A sharp scream cut through the night. Jack! Jack! He ran to Lily's room, taking the stairs 2 at a time. The girl was in the middle of another violent nightmare, tossing on the silk sheets. Sarah was already there, trying to calm her. Don't let them take it, Lily cried, her words broken by sobs. The money belongs to the babies. Mommy said it was the babies. She promised Grandpa. Jack scooped her up, feeling her trembling little body. Shh, it's all right. No one's taking anything from you. Gradually, through sobs and tremors, the full story began to emerge. On the night they fled, Lily had overheard a terrible argument between Robert and some men. They wanted more money, she sobbed, clinging to Jack's shirt. Daddy said he'd use the baby's money, but Mommy... What happened, sweetheart? Sarah asked gently, stroking her hair. Mommy said no, that it was the last thing Grandpa and Grandma left. She took us in the middle of the night, said we were going to a safe place. She was going to report Daddy. Lily trembled even more. But Daddy woke up. He was so angry. I've never seen him so angry. Mommy handed me the babies, told me to run, and I ran so far. It was so cold, but I couldn't stop. Jack felt a cold fury fill his chest. Claire had given her life to protect her children, and now Robert wanted to use every last cent that belonged to them. Tom, he said on the phone later, his voice determined. I want everything, every record, every transaction, every suspicious conversation. We'll expose Robert Matthews for who he really is. I'm on it, the detective replied. But Jack, be careful. Desperate men are dangerous. The next morning, Jack called his legal team together. I want full custody of these children, he announced. And we're going to do this the right way, with proof, with documents, with everything we've got. We'll expose every penny he stole, every veiled threat, every betrayal of trust. It'll be a tough battle, one of the lawyers cautioned. He's the legal father. He's a monster who destroyed a family for money, Jack cut in. And he won't lay a finger on those kids while I'm alive. While the lawyers discussed strategies, Jack glanced out the window. In the garden, guarded by security, Lily was playing with the twins. Emma was attempting her first steps, supported by her sister's hands, while Ethan clapped excitedly. "You're my family now," Jack murmured. "And I protect my family." The buzz of an incoming message pulled him back to reality. It was Tom. "Suspicious movement near the mansion. I think he's preparing to do something. My contacts say he has a meeting tonight with some dangerous men. Seems desperate." Jack clenched his fists. The storm was on its way, but he was ready. Robert Matthews had no idea who he was dealing with. "Bring it on," he muttered. "I'm waiting." The black and white photo on Jack's computer screen showed a tall, elegant man leaving a luxury hotel in Manhattan. Robert Matthews had the kind of face that inspired immediate trust. Light eyes, a practiced smile, grey hair at the temples that gave him an air of distinction. The kind of man you'd trust with your money without thinking twice, and that was exactly what made him so dangerous. Jack studied the image carefully, searching the harmonious features for any hint of the monstrosity Lily feared so much. How could someone with such a respectable appearance hide such cruelty? "It was taken yesterday at 2:37 p.m., Tom said over the phone. "He's in the Peninsula, executive suite on the 18th floor. He's been making dozens of calls a day, meeting people in expensive restaurants like Le Bernardin and Daniel. He's moving large amounts of money through different accounts." "How much exactly?" "In the last 3 days, over $2 million. The money goes in and out almost immediately, bouncing between offshore accounts. It's like he's—" Tom hesitated, looking for the right words. "Covering his tracks," Jack suggested. "Exactly. And one more thing. For someone in his position, CEO of a mid-sized pharmaceutical company, declared annual salary around $700,000. He's making outrageously risky deals. He sold company shares way below market value, mortgaged properties, looks desperate." Jack hung up, thoughtful, turning his chair to look through the floor-to-ceiling window. In the mansion's garden below, protected by reinforced security, a tender scene played out. Lily was sitting on a blanket, helping Emma balance in her first attempts at standing. Sarah, a few steps away, held Ethan, who clapped excitedly for his sister. In recent weeks, the girl had started opening up like a flower in sunlight. Her smiles, once so rare, now lit up the mansion multiple times a day. She had even begun to sing to the twins as her mother once had, gentle lullabies that made Jack pause in the hallway to listen, his heart tight with emotion. The intercom on his desk rang, breaking the moment of peace. "Mr. Morrison, Thompson from Alpha Team here. We've spotted a black SUV with tinted windows and New Jersey plates circling the block for the 3rd time today." Jack felt his stomach tighten. "Did you get the license plate?" "Yes, sir. We already sent it for verification. According to protocol, we've activated a yellow alert." "Good. Keep me informed of any movement." Jack pressed another button on the intercom. "Sarah, please bring the children inside, now." Through the window, he watched the housekeeper move with well-practiced efficiency. In under a minute, she had gathered the toys and ushered the children into the safety of the house. Lily looked up toward Jack's window with worry on her face, as if she sensed something was wrong. Morrison Mansion's security was already impressive before, but in the last few weeks, it had become a true fortress. State-of-the-art cameras covered every inch of the perimeter. Motion sensors monitored the property around the clock, and an elite team of ex-military personnel worked in shifts. Jack had hired child security specialists, installed protocols for different threat levels, and even prepared a safe room in the basement, fully equipped to shelter the children for weeks if necessary. Some would call it paranoia, but for him, no precaution was too great when it came to protecting his family. His family. It was strange how that idea had become so natural in such a short time. Those 3 children, whom fate placed in his path on a snowy winter's night, were now the center of his world. The rest of the afternoon passed in apparent normalcy, but Jack could feel the tension in the air, like electricity before a storm. During dinner, served earlier than usual for safety, Lily was unusually quiet, her eyes frequently darting to the curtained windows. "Everything all right, little one?" Jack asked gently, noticing she'd barely touched her favorite pasta. Lily put down her fork, biting her lower lip, a gesture Jack had already learned was a sign of anxiety. "I saw a man today," she finally whispered. "When I was in the garden with Sarah and the babies, on the other side of the street." Jack felt his heart race, but kept his voice calm. "What did he look like?" "I couldn't see him well, but..." Tears started streaming down her pale cheeks. "He was wearing a navy blue suit with thin stripes. He said he always had to look important, so people would trust him when he asked." She stopped abruptly, as if she'd said too much. Jack and Sarah exchanged worried glances. It was the first time Lily had spoken so directly about Robert and his habits. Lily continued after a few moments, her voice almost inaudible. "He made Mommy cry a lot, always asked for more money, said these were the last bad men he'd pay, then everything would be fine, but it never was." "Bad men?" Jack asked cautiously, his heart pounding. "They used to come to our house sometimes, late at night." Lily hugged her arms around herself like she was cold. "They talked loudly, wanted money. Daddy would act differently when they came. Really scared. Once he broke all the vases in the living room after they left." Jack's mind was racing, connecting the dots. "Tom," he murmured to himself. "I need to talk to Tom." After putting the children to bed, longer than usual because Lily kept asking to check if all the windows were locked, Jack met the detective in his secure basement office. "Loan sharks," Tom confirmed, as Jack relayed what Lily had said. The detective spread out various documents over the mahogany table, and not small-time lenders. "Robert Matthews is in deep with big, dangerous players." "How much?" "From what I've tracked, more than 15 million. It started with horse racing bets, then roulette, high-stakes poker. When it got too big, he began borrowing to cover the debts, one hole covering another, deeper and deeper." "And Claire, how does she fit in?" Tom pulled out a separate folder. "Claire Bennett Matthews studied music at Juilliard and as a respected teacher, came from a traditional Boston family. She had a considerable inheritance, properties, stocks, treasury bonds, around $5 million. "Let me guess," Jack interrupted, his voice bitter. "Robert saw her as a life raft." "Exactly. The marriage was quick, less than 6 months after they met. For the first few years, everything seemed perfect. He legally adopted Lily, they were seen at charity events, looked like the ideal couple." Tom passed more documents. "But over the last 2 years, her entire inheritance was siphoned into different accounts, some offshore and some under shell companies. The money simply had disappeared." "My God," Jack muttered, running his hands through his hair. "There's more," Tom said gravely. "I found a life insurance policy in her name, $5 million francs, sole beneficiary, Robert Matthews. It was taken out 3 months before there was an accident." Jack felt a shiver down his spine. "The car accident." "Wasn't enough," Tom finished. "The debts were too large. Now the twins have a trust fund set up by their grandparents, $10 million, only accessible when they turn 21. But if he has legal custody..." "He wants to use the children's money," Jack said, feeling nauseated. A piercing scream cut through the night. "Jack, Jack!" He raced to Lily's room, taking the steps 2 at a time. She was in the midst of another violent nightmare, thrashing around. Sarah was already there, trying to calm her. "Don't let them take it," Lily shouted, her words broken by sobs. "It's the baby's money. Mommy said it belonged to the babies. She promised Grandpa." Jack scooped her up, feeling her trembling. "Shh, it's all right. No one's taking anything from you." "I promise." Slowly, amid sobs, the full story started to emerge. On the night they ran away, Lily woke to angry voices downstairs. Hiding at the top of the stairs, she heard a terrible argument between Robert and some men. "They wanted more money," she sobbed, clinging to Jack's shirt. "A lot of money. Daddy said he'd take the baby's money, that he had no choice but Mommy..." Her voice failed. "What happened, dear?" Sarah asked softly, stroking her hair. "Mommy said no, that it was the last thing Grandpa and Grandma left, for the baby's future." Lily shook more. She took us in the middle of the night, packed some clothes in a bag, grabbed important documents from the safe, said we were going someplace safe, that she'd report Daddy." Jack felt his heart seize, but he woke up. Lily nodded, hiding her face in his chest. He was so mad. I'd never seen him like that. Mommy gave me the babies, told me to run, not to stop. I ran and ran. It was so cold, but I couldn't stop. Jack held her tighter, tears threatening to fall. Claire had given her life to protect her children, and now Robert wanted to take every last cent that was theirs. After Lily finally fell asleep again, this time in Jack's room at her insistence, he returned to his office. The rage he felt was unlike anything he'd experienced. Cold, calculated, relentless. "Tom," he said on the phone, his voice deadly calm, "I want everything. Every record, every transaction, every suspicious conversation. We're going to expose Robert Matthews for who he really is, a gambling addict who destroyed his own family for money." "I'm on it," the detective replied. "I have contacts in the gaming department who can help. But Jack, be careful. Desperate men are the most dangerous, and Robert Matthews is cornered." Early the next morning, before sunrise, Jack assembled his legal team in the mansion's library. The smell of strong coffee filled the room as he laid out his strategy. "I want permanent custody of these children," he declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. "And we'll do it the right way. Proof, documents, everything we can gather. We'll lay bare every cent he diverted, every threat he made, every betrayal of trust." "It'll be difficult," said Catherine Chen, his lead attorney. "He's their legal father, has a solid public image, powerful connections." "He's a monster who ruined a family for money," Jack cut in. "A compulsive gambler who wasted his wife's inheritance, faked a life insurance claim, and now wants to steal his own children's future. And he won't lay a finger on them while I'm alive." The determination in his voice silenced the room. For a few moments, only the ticking of the old clock above the fireplace could be heard. "Where do we start?" Catherine finally asked, opening her laptop. "With the financial records," Jack replied. "I want a full audit of his personal accounts, business accounts, offshores. Tom already has some of the data. I also want Claire's accident investigated. Something doesn't add up." "And about the children's short-term safety?" another lawyer asked. "He still has legal rights as a father. He might try forced visitation." "I've considered that," Jack said. "The mansion is basically a fortress now. No one gets in or out without clearance. Plus," he paused significantly, "we'll file a protective order today. I have enough evidence of his violent history to justify it." As the lawyers debated strategies, Jack moved to the window. In the garden below, watched by vigilant security, Lily had just stepped out for her morning walk with Sarah and the twins. Emma was trying to take her first steps, supported by her sister, while Ethan clapped excitedly in his stroller. "You're my family now," Jack murmured, pressing his hand against the bulletproof glass, "and I protect my family." The ping of an incoming message brought him back to reality. It was Tom. "Suspicious activity near the mansion. Looks like he's preparing to do something. My contacts say he's meeting some dangerous men tonight." "Seems desperate." Jack clenched his fists, adrenaline rushing through his veins. The storm was coming, but he was ready. Robert Matthews had picked the wrong battle this time. "Let it come," he murmured, watching his family in the garden. "I'm waiting." Morrison Mansion's security system failed at 11:47 p.m. on a rainy Thursday. It wasn't an ordinary failure. It was a coordinated, professional attack that temporarily knocked out power in the East Wing. In a matter of seconds, the backup cameras kicked in. But those brief moments of darkness were enough. Jack was in his office when the first alarms sounded. Before he could reach for the phone, Sarah burst through the door. "He's here," she said, pale. "At the side entrance by the kitchen. The children. In the safe room, just like we practiced. Lily is scared, but she's keeping the twins calm." Jack nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. "Call the police. Code Red." Robert Matthews was not alone. Through the still functional cameras, Jack could see 3 men with him. Professionals, judging by their stance and coordinated movements. One of them carried a briefcase that made Jack's stomach churn. "Mr. Morrison," Robert's voice echoed through the entry hall, falsely cordial. "What an impressive mansion. Though I must say your security leaves something to be desired." Jack descended the stairs slowly, each step calculated. For the first time, he stood face to face with the man who had ruined so many lives. Matthews, he replied icily. Breaking and entering is a crime. Robert smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His impeccable navy suit contrasted sharply with the implied violence of the scene. A crime? Interesting you'd mention that. You know what else is a crime? Kidnapping? My children are here. Morrison, I've come to take them. Your children? Jack gave a humorless laugh. The ones you're trying to rob? How much was that trust fund again? 10 million. Robert's smile faltered briefly. You don't know what you're talking about. I know everything, Matthews. The gambling, the debts, the loan sharks. I even know about Claire's life insurance. Very convenient. That accident, huh? Watch your words, Robert hissed, his veneer of civility cracking. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Oh, I have a pretty good idea. Jack took a step forward. I can imagine exactly what happened that night. Claire found out about your plan for the twins' money, right? She decided to run, protect the children, but you couldn't allow that. Shut up, Robert exploded, taking a step closer. His hired men tensed, ready to fight. Where are my children? Safe, far from you. Sirens started wailing in the distance. Robert checked his watch, visibly nervous. Last chance, Morrison. Give me the kids, and no one gets hurt. You won't lay a hand on them, Jack declared, his voice like steel. Not ever again. It was as if a switch had been flipped. Robert made a quick gesture and his men advanced. Jack was prepared. Years of martial arts training hadn't been for nothing. The first man went down with a precise blow, but the other two were more experienced. The fight spilled into the hall, furniture knocked over, glass shattering. At some point, Jack heard Sarah shouting that the police were on their way. Robert remained on the sidelines, watching the chaos with a twisted smile. One of the men cornered Jack against the wall, but managing billions had taught Jack always to have a plan B. With a swift move, he pressed the panic button hidden in the baseboard. Security sprinklers burst to life, drenching everyone within seconds. The fog system wasn't water. It was a non-lethal compound designed for situations like this. Within minutes, the attackers started coughing and losing coordination. Daddy! The scream cut through the chaos like a knife. Lily stood at the top of the stairs, having somehow escaped the safe room. Her green eyes were wide with terror. Lily! Robert shouted, a bizarre mix of triumph and desperation in his voice. Come to Daddy, let's go get your siblings and— No! She screamed, backing away. You hurt Mommy. You want to hurt the babies. Your mother was weak, Robert growled, his mask fully dropped. She was going to ruin everything. The money is mine. All of it's mine. At that moment, the mansion doors burst open. A SWAT team flooded the room. Weapons raised. Robert and his men were quickly subdued, despite their incoherent protests about parental rights and private property. Jack ran upstairs, scooping Lily into his arms. She was shaking, but her eyes never left the sight of her father being handcuffed. Is it over? She whispered. It's over, little one. Jack hugged her tight. He'll never hurt you again. Sarah appeared, carrying the twins. Miraculously, they'd slept through the whole ordeal. The police want to talk to you, she said gently, and the lawyers are on their way. Jack nodded, still holding Lily. Downstairs, he could hear Robert screaming threats as he was taken away. They're my children, my money. You'll regret this, Morrison. Lily buried her face in Jack's neck, her small hands gripping his soaked shirt. Don't let him come back, she begged. Never again, Jack promised, kissing the top of her head. You're my family now, and I protect my family. The next hours were a whirlwind of statements, police reports, and consultations with lawyers. The mansion became a crime scene as investigators collected evidence of the break-in and the fight. This will help with the custody battle, Catherine, Jack's chief lawyer, remarked as she watched the police. Breaking and entering, attempted kidnapping, assault. He dug his own grave. Jack just nodded, his mind already on the next day. The physical battle was over, but the legal war had only just begun, and he was ready to fight with everything he had. In the children's room, now guarded by two officers, Lily had finally fallen asleep, clutching her teddy bear. The twins slept peacefully in their cribs, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. You know, Sarah said softly, adjusting Lily's blanket, when you brought these kids here on that snowy night, I knew our lives would change. but I never imagined how much. Jack smiled, gazing at his improvised family. It was the best change possible. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the first lights of dawn were appearing on the horizon. A new day was beginning, and with it, a new chapter in the life of the Morrison family. But as Robert was taken to the police station, his final words echoed like a sinister promise. "This isn't over, Morrison." Not by a long shot. The coming legal battle would be brutal, but Jack was ready. For the first time in his life, he had something more valuable than all his money to protect. He had a family. Courtroom 7 of the New York Supreme Court had the kind of silence that weighed on your bones. Jack Morrison adjusted his tie for the 10th time that morning, his eyes fixed on the door where Robert Matthews would enter. Next to him, Catherine Chen arranged a daunting stack of documents. "Remember," she whispered, "stay calm, no matter what he says. We have the evidence on our side." Jack nodded mechanically, his mind wandering back to the scene he had left at the mansion hours earlier. Lily, pale in her new blue dress, had refused to let go of his hand until the very last moment. "You'll come back, right?" she had asked, her green eyes filled with fear. "Promise." "I always come back for you guys, little one," he promised, kissing her forehead. "Sarah will be with you and the twins the whole time." Now, seated in the austere courtroom, that promise weighed on him like lead. The side door opened and Robert Matthews entered, escorted by his lawyers. Even in handcuffs, he maintained that aura of studied dignity that had fooled so many people for so long. His eyes met Jack's for a moment, cold as ice. "All rise," announced the officer. "Court is now in session. Matthews versus Morrison. Judge Eleanor Blackwood presiding." Judge Blackwood was known for her sharp mind and lack of patience for legal theatrics. Her experienced eyes swept over the courtroom from behind reading glasses. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to make one thing clear. This is not a media circus. We're here to determine the best interests of 3 minor children. Proceed, Ms. Chen." Catherine rose gracefully. "Your Honor, we present irrefutable evidence that Robert Matthews is a real danger to his children. Not only the violent events of last week, when he invaded Mr. Morrison's property with armed men, but a consistent history of abusive and irresponsible behavior." She began laying out evidence methodically. Financial records showing Claire's inheritance was siphoned off, police reports on the 17 domestic disturbance calls, neighbor testimonies, suspicious medical records. "But the gravest point, Your Honor," Catherine continued, "is Mr. Matthews' attempt to illegally access the twins' trust fund, $10 million that he intended to use to pay gambling debts to criminal organizations." Robert shifted uncomfortably in his seat as his lawyers objected. The judge silenced them with a gesture. "Mr. Morrison," she turned to Jack, "you have no legal connection to these children. Why should we consider your request for custody?" Jack stood, feeling the weight of that question. It was something he'd asked himself many times in recent weeks. "Your Honor, I found 3 children abandoned on a winter night. A 6-year-old girl using her own body to shield 2 babies from the cold. Since then, I've provided not just their material needs, but something they've never had before, a safe, loving home." "Liar!" Robert suddenly burst out. "He kidnapped my children! He's using his money to steal my family!" "Mr. Matthews," the judge warned sternly, "one more outburst, and you'll be removed from the courtroom." The morning dragged on in a series of witnesses and evidence. Tom Parker presented his findings on Robert's activities. Financial experts detailed the money trail. A child psychologist spoke about Lily's evident trauma. During the lunch break, Jack found Sarah waiting in the corridor. "How are they?" he asked immediately. "The twins are fine, but Lily—" Sarah hesitated. "She barely touched breakfast. She keeps asking if you're coming back, if her father will take her away." Jack felt his heart tighten. "And you? How are you holding up?" Sarah lowered her gaze, a soft blush tinting her cheeks. "Jack, She took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been holding in for a long time." Jack's heart quickened. There was something in her voice, in how her fingers nervously toyed with her bag strap. "Sarah, Mr. Morrison," Catherine interrupted, appearing in the corridor. "They're calling us back in." The moment shattered like glass. Sarah stepped back, composing herself quickly. "We'll talk later," she murmured, turning to leave, but Jack had just enough time to see the tears she tried to hide. Back in the courtroom, it was the defense's turn. Robert's lawyers painted a very different picture. A devoted father, a respectable businessman, who had his family stolen by an eccentric billionaire. Mr. Morrison is single, a workaholic, with no experience raising children. The lead defense attorney argued. What kind of family environment can he offer? Meanwhile, Mr. Matthews is the legal father, has a traditional home. A home where children were terrorized, Catherine countered, where a 6-year-old girl regularly witnessed domestic violence, where a mother was possibly murdered. The temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Judge Blackwood leaned forward. "Ms. Chen, that's an extremely serious accusation. And we have evidence to support it, Your Honor." Catherine signaled for an assistant to bring another folder. "We'd like to call our next witness, Dr. Rachel Sullivan, a trauma specialist who's been treating Lily for the past few weeks." Dr. Sullivan was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a calm voice. She detailed Lily's nightmares, her troubling drawings, and finally the revelations about the night Claire fell down the stairs. "The child shows all the classic signs of post-traumatic stress disorder," she explained. "But even more significant is the pattern of her fears. Lily isn't just afraid of punishment, she has a specific fear that the bad men will come take the babies. In our sessions, she repeatedly mentions that Daddy owes money to dangerous people, and that Mommy didn't let him take the baby's money." Robert Matthews looked as if he'd aged 10 years during the testimony. His lawyers whispered frantically among themselves. Judge Blackwood removed her glasses, massaging the bridge of her nose. "Dr. Sullivan, in your professional opinion, what would be the impact of removing the children from their current environment?" "It would be devastating, Your Honor. For the first time since the initial trauma, Lily feels safe. The twins are forming healthy attachment bonds. Mr. Morrison and his housekeeper, Sarah Williams, have provided exactly what these children needed most: stability, safety, and unconditional love." The afternoon wore on with more witnesses, more evidence. To Jack, each minute felt like an eternity, thinking of Lily waiting anxiously at home. Finally, Judge Blackwood announced what everyone had been waiting for. "Given the complexity of this case and the volume of evidence, I need time to review it all properly. We'll reconvene in 3 days." Jack had barely left the courtroom when his phone rang. It was Sarah, her voice trembling. "Jack, you need to come home." "Now, what happened?" "It's Lily. She had a panic attack after seeing the news on TV. She's locked herself in her room, won't talk to anyone." Jack had never driven so fast in his life. When he arrived at the mansion, he found Sarah in the upstairs hallway, looking exhausted. "She's only asking for you," she said softly. Jack approached the bedroom door. "Lily?" "It's me." There was a sound of quick footsteps as the door opened. Lily threw herself into his arms and sobbing. "They said on TV, said he could still take us away." "Hey, look at me!" Jack held her by the shoulders. "No one is taking you. I promised, remember. But you're not really our dad," she sobbed. "What if the judge sends us away?" "What if Lily?" Jack knelt down to her eye level. "Family isn't just about blood, it's about love, caring, and protection, and I love you 3 more than anything in this world." Sarah, watching from the doorway, felt her heart tighten. There was so much truth in those words, so much love in that scene. The same love she'd been silently carrying for years. Later, after he finally calmed Lily and got her to sleep, Jack found Sarah in the library. She stood by the window, gazing out into the night. "You were about to tell me something today," he reminded her gently. "In court." Sarah turned slowly, silent tears running down her face. "This isn't the right time," she tried to smile. "You have so much on your plate." "Sarah." Jack stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "Please." She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I love you, Jack. I have for years. I've watched you build your empire, admired your strength, your drive. But I've never loved you more than I do now, seeing you with these children. Seeing the amazing father you've become." Jack felt like the world had stopped spinning. How hadn't he realized it before? Sarah had always been there, his safe harbor, his confidant, the person who kept his house running, the person helping raise his children. The realization struck him like lightning. They were his children, no matter what any court said. Those 3 little lives were his family now, and Sarah was part of that family too. "I've been such a fool," he murmured, touching her face gently. "A blind fool." Before he could say more, the cry of a baby sounded through the monitor. Sarah stepped back instinctively. "Must be Emma," she said, wiping her tears. "She always wakes up around this time." "I'll go." Jack held her hand. "But this conversation isn't over." The following days were filled with palpable tension at the mansion. The press had caught wind of the story, the single billionaire fighting for custody of 3 children against a potentially criminal father. Photographers crowded outside the gates, prompting Jack to hire extra security. On the morning of the final hearing, Lily again refused to let go of Jack. "Take us with you," she begged. "Please." "I can't, little one, but I promise I'll be back soon." He hesitated for a moment. "And when I come back, how would you feel if Sarah moved in permanently?" "As to part of the family." Lily's eyes widened. "You and Sarah are getting married?" Jack smiled. "Maybe. What do you think?" "She's already like a mom," Lily said simply. "She just needs to be a real one." At the courthouse, the atmosphere was even more tense than on previous days. Robert Matthews looked like he'd aged years, his arrogance replaced by an expression of defeat. Judge Blackwood wasted no time on introductions. "Over the past days," she began, "I've examined every piece of evidence, every testimony, every document in this case. And one thing is clear. The children's best interest is our sole priority." She paused, glancing around the room. "Mr. Matthews, the evidence against you is substantial and disturbing. Not just recent events, but a pattern of abusive and irresponsible behavior. Your gambling debts, your ties to criminal elements, and especially your attempt to access your children's trust fund illegally are deeply concerning." Robert sank into his seat as she continued. "Mr. Morrison Faircy, you have no legal ties to these children. Yet since you found them on that winter night, you've shown extraordinary commitment to their well-being. You provided not only their material needs, but created an environment of love, security, and stability." Jack hardly dared to breathe, waiting for the verdict. "Therefore, this court rules. Full and permanent custody of Lily, Emma, and Ethan Matthews is granted to Jackson Morrison, with social services supervision for the next 6 months. Mr. Matthews, you are prohibited from any contact with the children until you complete a gambling addiction treatment and undergo a full psychological evaluation. Moreover, the evidence related to Claire Matthews' death will be forwarded to the district attorney for proper investigation." The courtroom erupted into murmurs. Jack felt like a massive weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Catherine squeezed his hand, smiling. Robert Matthews was escorted out, defeated. His final look at Jack held no more threats, just a deep sadness for all he'd lost. Jack barely waited for the closing procedures to finish before hurrying to his car. On the way to the mansion, he called Sarah. "It's over," he said simply. "We won." Her sigh of relief on the other end made his heart tighten. "Lily's right here," Sarah said, her voice choked with emotion. "She wants to talk to you." "Jack," Lily's small voice trembled. "Are you coming back?" "I'm coming home, little one. To our home. Forever." When he reached the mansion, he found his family waiting at the door. Lily ran into his arms as Sarah held the twins, tears of joy on her face. "We'll never have to leave again?" Lily asked, her green eyes shining with hope. "Never again," Jack promised, holding her tight. Then he looked at Sarah, his heart overflowing with love. "Actually, our family is about to get bigger. If Sarah says yes, of course." The smile that lit up her face was all the answer he needed. There, in the garden of Morrison Mansion under the afternoon sun, a new family was born, not through blood, but through choice, love, and destiny. And for Jack, everything finally made sense. Tom Parker looked older and more tired when he walked into Jack's office that rainy morning. The brown envelope he was carrying seemed to weigh a ton in his hands. "You need to see this," he said simply, spreading documents over the desk. Jack picked up the first sheet, an old birth certificate, its edges yellowed with age. His heart stopped when he read the name, Robert James Morrison Matthews. "Morrison?" he whispered, incredulous. "Your uncle," Tom confirmed. "Your father's younger brother, given up for adoption as a baby. The Matthews family adopted him when he was only 3 months old." Jack felt the floor drop out from under him. Memories of whispered conversations between his parents, old photos hidden in a box in the attic, a name never to be mentioned. Why didn't they ever tell me? According to what I found, it was a scandal at the time. Your grandmother had an affair, got pregnant. Your grandfather insisted the baby be given up to avoid public shame. Jack examined more documents, old photos showing a baby in his grandmother's arms, adoption papers, carefully preserved newspaper clippings. Does Robert know? He found out about a year ago, Tom answered. That's when he started digging into his own past. And Jack, and there's more. The detective pulled out another paper, a will. Your grandfather, consumed by guilt, set up a secret fund for Robert, $5 million he could only access if he discovered his true identity. And he did, Jack said, right when he was most desperate for money. Exactly. But there was a catch. He'd have to publicly acknowledge his origins, take the Morrison name, which would mean a scandal for our family, Jack concluded. And he chose not to. Instead, he sank deeper into gambling, trying to get money elsewhere. That's when he started draining Claire's inheritance. Jack stood up, walking to the window. Outside, Lily played with the twins in the garden, protected by discreet guards. His niece and nephews by blood, not only by choice. His phone rang. It was Catherine, his attorney. "Jack, Robert requested a meeting, says he has a proposal." The law firm's conference room felt smaller with the tension in the air. Robert sat on the other side of the table, looking like a shadow of the arrogant man he once was. "I'll get straight to the point," he said. "I'll give up all claims on the children, custody, visitation rights, everything. In return, I want $20 million. Jack felt his stomach turn. "You're trying to sell your own kids. Don't be a hypocrite, a cousin." He spat the last word like venom. "You already knew about our relationship." "I just found out," Jack answered coldly. "Just like I know about the fund our grandfather left you." Robert laughed bitterly. $5 million, that wouldn't even cover the interest on my debts. But $20 million? I could start over, far away from here. And the children, Lily, the twins, they're just merchandise to you. "They're your family," Robert said, a flicker of genuine emotion crossing his face. "More yours than mine, apparently. The Morrison blood is stronger than I ever imagined." At that moment, Judge Blackwood entered the room. After hearing the situation, she removed her glasses thoughtfully. "I have an alternative proposal," she said. "Mr. Matthews, you relinquish custody of the children in exchange for the fund your biological father left you, the original $5 million. Mr. Morrison covers your documented gambling debts upon verification. In return, you agree to enter a treatment program for addiction and stay away from the children until they, as adults, decide if they want contact." "What about the Morrison name?" Robert asked. "It remains a secret if you prefer, but the children have the right to learn their history when they're older." Jack watched his uncle, because that's what Robert was, consider the offer. He looked like he was fighting an internal battle. "I need time to think," he finally said. Back at the mansion, Jack found Lily waiting at the top of the stairs. "You look sad," she said, with the acute perception of children. "Just thinking, little one." He sat down next to her. "Lilies, if you could choose, would you want to see your father sometimes?" She tensed immediately. Is he going to take us away?" "No, never. But sometimes, even people who did bad things deserve a second chance. If they really change." "How do you know if they really changed?" The innocent question hit Jack like a punch. "How did you know, really?" Sarah found them like that, sitting on the stairs. She joined them, Emma in her arms, while Ethan crawled behind. "Jack," she said softly, "whatever decision you need to make, trust your heart. You've always known what's right for these children." He looked at his improvised family, Lily leaning on his shoulder, the twins playing at his feet. Sarah offering her unconditional love. And then he thought of Robert, his lost uncle, a man broken by bad choices and family secrets. His phone vibrated with a text from Robert. "I need an answer by tomorrow. My creditors won't wait any longer." Jack closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the choice he had to make. The future of his family, both chosen and by blood, depended on him now. Snow was falling gently outside Morrison Mansion when Jack made his decision. Watching the white flakes dance in the air, he couldn't help recalling another snowy night, nearly a year ago, when 3 small lives changed his destiny forever. Now, it was his turn to change someone else's destiny. The decision he was about to announce would surprise everyone. Rather than simply paying off Robert's debts or agreeing to buy him out of parental rights, Jack had come up with a different plan, one nobody expected, especially from a man known for his ruthless efficiency in business. The law firm's conference room was silent as he began to speak. Robert sat across the table, looking small in his ill-fitting suit. Judge Blackwood observed closely, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Catherine Chen, Jack's attorney, wore a barely concealed expression of shock. He hadn't shared his plan with even her. "I want to establish a rehabilitation fund," Jack announced, his voice steady. "Not just to cover the debts, but to ensure a complete recovery program, treatment for gambling addiction, therapy, medical support, professional rehab, everything needed for a real second chance." Robert, who had been staring at his hands, looked up sharply. "Why?" "Because you're my family," Jack said, letting the words linger. "And because those children deserve to know their biological father had a chance to make amends. They deserve more than a story of abandonment and betrayal. They deserve to know that sometimes people can change if given the right opportunity." Judge Blackwood leaned forward, intrigued. "Go on, Mr. Morrison." "Be specific." "I propose a phased agreement," Jack explained, opening a folder in front of him. "First, Robert undergoes an intensive 1-year program at one of the best rehab clinics in the country, with all expenses covered. The fund our grandfather left, $5 million, will be held in escrow, released only after he successfully completes the program." "And during that year," Robert asked, his voice raspy, "you focus exclusively on recovery, no contact with the children, no financial worries. Your documented debts will be negotiated and paid through a separate fund I'll establish. In exchange, you agree to follow the treatment strictly and accept regular evaluations." Catherine added, "We also propose part of the fund be converted into new trust accounts for the children, managed by an independent committee. This would ensure their educational future and well-being no matter what happens." "And after the first year," Judge Blackwood asked, "if treatment is successful and psychological evaluations are positive, we'll start a gradual visitation schedule. It'll begin in a controlled environment with professionals present, then progress based on his improvement and, crucially, based on the children's wishes." Robert ran his hands over his face, a gesture so reminiscent of Jack's father that it was almost painful to watch. "Why are you doing this, Jack? You could just cut me out completely, keep the kids, your money." "Because I saw something in Lily's eyes the other day," Jack replied, his voice softening. "Underneath the fear and pain, there's a part of her that still loves the father she knew before, the one who took her out for ice cream, who taught her how to ride a bike. And the twins, they deserve the chance to know their full story one day, to understand that their father fought to become a better person." "What if I fail?" Robert whispered, a vulnerability in his voice no one had heard before. "Then you'll have failed by trying," Jack answered simply, "not by giving up." Judge Blackwood removed her glasses, cleaning them thoughtfully. "Mr. Matthews, what's your response to this proposal?" Robert was silent for several minutes, his face a portrait of conflicting emotions. When he finally spoke, his voice shook. "For years, I used addiction as an excuse for my choices, my failings. It was easier to keep gambling, keep lying, than face what I'd become. But that night," he closed his eyes, as if the memory physically hurt. "That night, when I saw the terror in Lily's eyes, when I realized she'd rather freeze with the babies than come back home, something broke inside me." Jack watched his uncle wrestle with his words. It was like looking into a distorted mirror of time. seeing how small choices could lead two people of the same blood down drastically different paths. "I accept," Robert finally said, "not for the money, not to clear my name, but because those children deserve to know their father tried to fix his mistakes." The mediation process that followed was intense and meticulous. Lawyers from both sides spent weeks structuring an agreement that protected everyone's interests, especially the children's. Judge Blackwood personally oversaw every detail, ensuring all necessary safeguards were in place. At home, Jack faced perhaps the toughest challenge, explaining the situation to Lily. One quiet evening, after putting the twins to bed, he found her in her special room, a space Sarah had decorated with glowing stars on the ceiling and shelves full of colorful books. "Little one," he began softly, sitting on the edge of her bed, "remember when we talked about second chances?" Lily nodded, hugging her favorite teddy bear, the same one Jack had bought in their first week at the mansion. "About Daddy?" "Yes, he's sick, Lily. Like people who get ill and need medicine. Your dad needs a special kind of treatment. So he won't do bad things anymore. So he can learn to control those harmful urges." "Will he get better?" she asked, her voice small but steady. "He's going to try very hard," Jack replied honestly, because he'd promised himself never to lie to her. "And if he does, maybe one day, maybe you could see him again. But only if you want to and only if it's completely safe." Lily was silent for a long moment, her fingers fiddling with the bear's worn ear. "You'll still be our dad, right?" "Always." Jack hugged her tightly, feeling tears he hadn't realized he was holding back. "That never changes." The months that followed brought slow but meaningful changes. Robert entered a high-end rehab center in Arizona, specializing in executives with addiction issues. His weekly reports, sent to both Jack and Judge Blackwood, showed gradual but steady progress. Life at Morrison Mansion found a new rhythm. Sarah, now officially Jack's fiancée after a simple but emotional family dinner proposal, oversaw a series of renovations to make the East Wing more child-friendly. What used to be formal, seldom used rooms became a bright, functional area with a playroom, study space, and even a small music studio. A special request from Lily. The girl, now enrolled in a new private school not far away, showed extraordinary musical talent, clearly inherited from Claire. Her piano lessons quickly became the highlight of her week, and Jack often found her playing for the twins, who watched in fascination. Emma and Ethan, now almost 2, thrived under the constant love and care of their new family. Emma, as outgoing and curious as ever, had a special knack for making everyone laugh with her daily discoveries. Ethan, quieter, developed a particular bond with Jack, following him around like a little shadow and imitating his gestures with comic accuracy. One afternoon, 6 months into Robert's treatment, Jack received a thick letter from him. Inside the main envelope were 3 smaller ones, each bearing one of the children's names, to be opened when they were older. The main letter read, "Jack, the treatment is showing me who I really am, and, more painfully, who I could have been had I made different choices. Each therapy session peels back a layer of lies I told myself for years. The truth hurts, but it's necessary. Every day is a battle, but for the first time, I'm fighting for the right reason. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I want you to know you made the right choice that day. The children are exactly where they should be, with someone who loves them unconditionally and puts them first. Claire always said true love is proven by hard choices. You proved yours when you chose not just to protect them from me, but also to give me a chance to redeem myself. I don't know if I'm worthy of that chance, but I promise to try. In our support groups here, we learn to identify our triggers, our excuses. Mine was always feeling like I didn't belong, like I was an imposter in my own life. Finding out about my real origins, about being a Morrison, made all the lies I told myself seem justified. But now I see I was just searching for another excuse for my failures. Take care of them, Jack. Love them the way I should have. And thank you, not for the money or the chance, but for showing Lily that sometimes people can change. That lesson is worth more than any inheritance. Robert. Jack read and reread the letter several times before locking it away with the children's envelopes in his safe. One day, when they were older and ready, they would understand the whole story. A year passed, marked by small victories and big changes. Robert completed his initial program successfully and continued regular therapy, now living in a small Arizona town where he worked as a volunteer counselor at a rehab center. The first supervised meeting with the children was meticulously planned and took place in a neutral environment, with psychologists present. Lily, now 8, showed a surprising maturity that broke everyone's hearts. "He seems different," she said afterward, as Jack took her for ice cream, a tradition they kept for every difficult moment. "Less scary." And he cried when he realized Emma and Ethan can already walk. The twins, too young to remember the past, reacted with the natural curiosity of small children toward a gentle stranger who brought gifts and spoke softly. The visits continued, always supervised, always structured, progressing at a pace set by the children themselves. Jack and Sarah's wedding took place on a spring Sunday in the mansion's garden, which had truly become a home. Lily was the chief bridesmaid, wearing a sky-blue dress she had helped choose, her hair adorned with small white flowers matching her radiant smile. The twins, dressed in white, charmed all the guests as they clumsily walked down the flower-lined aisle, scattering petals everywhere and occasionally pausing to play with them. Emma, in particular, seemed determined to cover every inch of the path with petals, while Ethan followed faithfully, trying to mimic her every move. Robert was not invited. It was still too soon, the wounds too fresh, but he sent a gift that made Sarah cry when she opened it, an album of old photos of Claire and the children, happy moments that deserved to be remembered and cherished. Along with it was a simple card reading, "So they never forget her smile." Jack's study at the Morrison mansion had changed dramatically over the years. The once austere walls, adorned only with diplomas and certificates, were now filled with a colorful mix of children's drawings, family photos, and abstract paintings, these last created by Emma, who showed an early artistic talent. His antique mahogany desk, an heirloom from generations of Morrisons, now shared space with a small children's table where Ethan, now 6, often sat to work alongside his dad, imitating his gestures with a comic seriousness that delighted everyone in the house. One December afternoon, as snow fell softly outside, recalling that fateful night years ago, Jack watched his family through the window. Sarah, 6 months pregnant, was helping Emma build what looked like the most elaborate snowman ever made in the mansion's garden. The girl had inherited Claire's artistic streak, turning everything she touched into a little work of art. Lily, now an elegant 11-year-old, taught Ethan how to make perfectly round snowballs, her patience with her little brother reminiscent of those early days at the mansion when she cared for the twins beyond her years. His phone buzzed, a message from Robert. 3 years sober today. The rehab center is offering me a permanent counseling position. Would the kids like to come to my graduation? I understand if it's too soon. Jack smiled, thinking about how far they'd come. The last supervised visit had gone well. Robert could now spend a few hours with the children without the tension of the earlier visits. Emma and Ethan called him Uncle Rob, a solution Lily had come up with that seemed to work for everyone. Dad! Lily's voice snapped him back. She waved from the back door, snow in her dark hair. Come build the snowman with us. Sarah said we can use your old tie. Jack grabbed his coat, the same one he had used to wrap 3 frightened children on a snowy night years ago. It was a bit worn now, but he could never bring himself to discard it. It reminded him how small moments could change entire lives. I'm coming, he called, stopping only to send a quick reply to Robert. I'll talk to them about your graduation. And congratulations. You also deserve a second chance at happiness. Outside, the snow kept falling gently, covering the world in a white blanket of possibilities, just as it had on that night when everything changed for them. But now, instead of cold and fear, it brought only the promise of joy and precious family moments. Sarah greeted him with a chilly kiss, her pregnant belly between them, carrying the newest addition to the Morrison family, a girl they already planned to name Claire, in honor of the woman whose sacrifice had made all of this possible. Happy? She asked softly, as they watched Lily help the twins put a scarf on the most artistic snowman the mansion's garden had ever seen. More than I ever imagined, Jack replied, hugging his wife and feeling their unborn daughter move between them. The snow was falling harder now, but no one seemed to care. Amid laughter and play, Jack recognized a simple truth. Sometimes the strongest families are forged not by fate, but by choice, by love, by second chances, and this was only the first page of their story.